We're going to look at sheep breeds in this presentation. Under the heading of sheep breeds and sheep production, we're going to look at a general introduction to sheep breeding in Ireland. We're going to look at the different breeds of sheep and what their characteristics are and what they're used for. We're going to look at a breeding strategy, and then we're going to look at the characteristics you look out for in replacement ewes and also when selecting rams. Okay, first we'll look at a few sheep facts just to get us started. So how do you classify sheep? Well, they're ruminant animals, and we would have studied a fair bit about nutrition in the ruminant. They belong to the phylum Chordata, which means they have a backbone, and they are even-toed ungulates. Then their weights. At birth, they weigh somewhere between 3 and 5 kilograms. The average is actually 4. And then by the time they reach their slaughter weight, they should be roughly 10 times that, so maybe 30 to 40 kilograms at slaughter. The gestation period is 149 days. Their estrus cycle lasts for 17 days, and then the duration of estrus, so the actual period of time that they're in heat, is 36 hours. Okay, some terms then that relate to sheep. A lamb, strictly speaking, refers to an animal that is less than 1 year old. Then if they get to more than a year old, they're called a hogget. A ewe then is a fully grown female. A ram is an intact male. And then if the male is castrated, it's called a wether. And then we've already come across a dam, meaning a female parent, a sire, meaning a male parent, and prolificacy, I think we've mentioned before, but it's particularly important when we talk about sheep. If a breed is described as prolific, it means that they're likely to produce multiple offspring, and that's very important in sheep production. You'd like all of your pregnant ewes to be carrying twins if possible. Right, the dental formula of sheep, just as a little recap, we came across this when we were doing our nutrition chapter. So you'll notice they have 0 incisors on the top, 4 on the bottom. Then they've no canines at all, which tells us that they are herbivores. And then an even number of premolars and molars, top and bottom. Okay, just as a side note, because it sometimes comes up in the short questions, the benefits of mixed grazing. If you put cattle and sheep together, you can actually get increase the growth rates by 10 to 15%. Why would that happen? The sheep tend to graze what the cattle wouldn't graze. So they're happy enough, even if if the grass is a little bit stalky, they're happy enough to eat that stalky grass that would be left by the cattle who are fairly selective. And that will promote tillering, which will give you increased dry matter. Also, the sheep will actually eat around the dung. So where you get that little flush of grass around the dung, the cattle wouldn't go near it, whereas the sheep will. And this gives you a nice even recycling of nutrients. Now, onto the breeds then. So with sheep, you'll have mountain breeds and lowland breeds. Generally, production tends to be for wool, lamb and ewe production. In Ireland, we are pretty much focused on the production of the lamb, the production of the meat. Then you also, when you're going to look at breeds, you will talk about the degree of prolificacy. So do they tend to have singles or twins or more? Optimum would be twins. Then you will also look at the growth rate and the conformation. So some of the main breeds that we're going to be looking at in Ireland would be the Blackface Mountain, the Wicklow Cheviot, the Galway, the Suffolk, and the Belclare Improver. Now, out of all of those, actually the only one that's native is the Galway sheep. The Wicklow Cheviot comes from Scotland. Right, classification then of the breeds. Some of your breeds would be known as prolific, meaning that they tend to have multiple offspring. An example of that would be your Belclare Improver, which we'll be doing a little bit about in a later slide. Then carcass breeds, or terminal breeds if you like, would include the Suffolk and the Texel. So both of those would be suitable as what are called terminal sires, meaning the ram that you will cross with your ewe for production of lamb that is for slaughter. The Suffolk actually gives you nice early lamb because it is fast growing and early maturing is one of the traits of that breed. The Texel would be more your mid-season lamb, and I'm sure you already know that the early lamb that you would get around Easter would be worth a heck of a lot more to you than the mid-season lamb. You tend to charge nice high prices around Easter. Then crossbreeds. We tend to have a lot of crossbreeds in Ireland, and we'll do a little bit more on that in a little while. And then some suitable ewe breeds would be that Galway sheep that we referred to earlier, the Blackface Mountain sheep, and the Cheviot as well. Right, so let's look at some of the traits. So first of all, one of the mountain breeds is your Blackface Mountain. This is a fairly good ewe breed. It is small and hardy, and they are a breed that's well able to withstand harsh conditions when they're in the mountains. The main use of them would be as breeding ewes. When your mountain sheep are in the mountains, they tend to graze very rough commonage, very variable as well, so they don't tend to be prolific. However, if you bring them down from the mountains and you use them as breeding ewes, and if you feed them on a higher plane of nutrition, so they're getting better nutrition when they come down to the lowland areas, they can actually go on to reproduce for much longer, and you can increase their prolificacy. So often these ones are used for crossing with lowland breeds. The Blackface Mountain is pretty popular over in the west of Ireland, and the ewes are known in particular for their excellent mothering ability. That's quite common in the mountain breeds, and also they're known for their milk production. The Wicklow Cheviot then. A bit of a misnomer there because the Wicklow Cheviot is actually from Scotland, and this one will be more popular over here on the east coast. It's the second of the mountain breeds. It's small and not as hardy as the Blackface, but it's still hardy enough. It is able to withstand the mountain conditions. Again, you're looking at wool production there and breeding ewes for the lowland farms as well. Again, the ewes are good mothers here as well, so they're often used in a cross on lowland farms to introduce that trait of good mothering ability. Now, to look at the lowland breeds then, the first one is your Galway sheep, and you can see straight away that it is quite different looking from the mountain breeds. It's large and it's white. This, as I said earlier, is our only native breed. It is bred for a less severe environment, so it's not quite as hardy, but it doesn't need to be. It tends to get quite big. It has a relatively good conformation. It has long wool, a pretty good growth rate, but not the best that you'd get, so it can be a bit late maturing. Now on to the Suffolk then. As you might have guessed, the Suffolk is coming from England, and you can see there that it has black head and legs. This breed is known for its excellent conformation. You can see that the narrow wedge shoulders, which are great for lambing, and then nice long muscly loin, great for chops, and then well filled out hindquarters as well. Now, it gives you a nice heavy carcass, but doesn't get too fat, and it is very often used in a cross as a terminal sire, and it will bring the traits of, in particular, a really fast growth rate, which will mean that you'll have an early maturing lamb, so it's suitable for that, for breeding for the Easter market. That is your Suffolk then. This brings us to Belclare Improver. So I mentioned that there were also crossbreeds. The Belclare Improver was brought in by Teagasc, crossing the Galway sheep. They wanted to improve the quality, the genetic quality of the Galway sheep, our only native breed. So they crossed it with a Finnish landrace, and that was to raise the prolificacy in the ewe. And then the offspring of that cross between the Galway and the Finnish landrace was crossed with a Welsh breed, the Lynn, and that would bring the quality, that ram would bring the quality of good conformation. Now, they've even gone on to cross that again with Texel, and when they cross that Texel with the Belclare, you'll get twins, you'll get low birthing difficulties, and you'll get excellent mothering as well. So you're bringing all of the different qualities that you'd be looking for if you breed with that cross. Now, breeding strategy then. So if you happen to have a flock that has poor quality, if you're noticing that you are, for instance, not getting great prolificacy, or that there tends to be problems with mothering ability, you can either replace the ewes or you can replace the rams. Now, it's actually much cheaper when you think about it to replace one ram than it would be to replace a load of your ewes, because one ram can actually serve 50 ewes naturally, or if you're trying to synchronize, one ram can serve 8 or 10 ewes. And this leads to the expression that the ram ensures quality in your flock, whereas the ewe is responsible for quantity, and we'll be getting to that a little bit later. So what are you looking for when you're selecting your breeds then? Oh, sorry, just before I look at that, our breeding strategy in Ireland then, if you're talking about mountain production, first of all, your ewes typically will only produce one lamb, and that's mainly because of the breed that you're talking about, like your black-faced mountain sheep, and also because of the lower plane of nutrition that they're going to be fed on. You've very little control over what they're eating. Now, you can either keep them as replacement ewes then, or those ewes will produce one lamb, and you can either keep that as a replacement ewe, or of course you can try to fatten that lamb and sell it. Now, you are generally talking about a foreign market for that. Maybe sell it onto the Italian market or something, where they don't mind the slightly darker meat that you're going to get out of your mountain breed. Now, that's what happens with the lamb, so either keeping it as a replacement or fattening it and selling it. Or what's going to happen to the ewe then is you're going to keep that ewe for a number of years, but her reproductive efficiency is going to fall fairly quickly. They don't tend to last as long, the mountain breeds, as the lowlands do. So generally speaking, that ewe will get sold on as what's called a cast ewe or a draft ewe into a lowland farm after a while, and that's usually done once her fertility starts to decrease because she's been surviving in those harsh conditions for so long. Usually when she's sold onto a lowland farm, if her nutrition is improved, she will actually go on to have multiple lambs again for a good while. Then what about the breeding strategy in lowland farms? Well, there you're absolutely focused on producing lambs for slaughter, and as I mentioned earlier, we tend to use that 3-breed crossing system where we are producing a crossbred ewe first of all, and that crossbred ewe typically has a mountain ewe parent to bring the good mothering ability, and then introduce another breed for the prolificacy, and then you finally cross them with a third breed, a terminal sire, either the Suffolk as I mentioned or the Texel. That breeding system is used not just in Ireland, it's used pretty much everywhere that sheep are common, New Zealand, Australia, etc. So if you're selecting breeds, what would you select them based on? It goes very much to what you would have been talking about when you were looking at your cattle. So you're looking for good carcass quality, good conformation, good prolificacy in the case of your ewes. Then you've also got to think about what feed is available to them, because fertility is increased with the high quality feed. So if you're selecting ewe, you're looking at good conformation, needs to look like she's in good general health. What do I mean by good general health? Well, you'd be looking at the mouth there. Is the jaw aligned well? That there's no protrusion? Are the teeth good? Because that's likely to be passed on if they're not. You want a good BCS as well. You want it to be 3.5 at mating, and good healthy looking udders as well. You generally want them to be free from hereditary defects, and definitely you want them to have good feet. Looking over the ram then, a lot of it is similar. You want good conformation, you want good general health again. Performance testing then, if you can get results of performance testing, you want to look at those. What's the Eurostar rating of this particular ram? The Eurostar rating goes from 5 down to 1, with 5 being the best quality rams that you're going to get and 1 being the worst quality. And then you want them to have very good feet. If they don't have perfect looking feet, then they are not going to stand the test of time, and they are not going to be able to serve as many ewes as you want. Another one there that I probably should have mentioned would be the testicles. You want to make sure that they're firm and the same size. Bigger testicles are better because bigger testicles produce more sperm. The BCS in terms of a ram, you want them to be at about 3.5 to 4 actually when they are entering the mating season, because it takes quite a toll on them. Right, so in terms of ram selection then, you're looking for a pure breed ram. So if you've had a ram around and you have bred with him the year before and you've kept some of those lambs, then you have to get rid of that ram. You're not going to have pure breed ram with the same pure breed. If you're buying them in, you need to obviously make sure they're not sterile, so you need to test them. Your ram will reach puberty at 6 months, so he's ready to go at that stage. Now, I think I mentioned earlier a terminal sire, but just to go back over what that means, that's a ram that's used to produce offspring with a good quick growth rate so that they'll be early maturing and also good carcass quality. And we already mentioned as well that some good quality terminal sires would include the Suffolk and the Texel. The Suffolk would be actually significantly higher growth rate. So that's why they're suitable for the Easter market, which we mentioned was worth quite a bit of money to the farmer in comparison to the Texel, which will give you your mid-season lamb. Lovely pictures of our Suffolk and our Texel there. So I talked earlier about the ram being of quality. So because that ram is bringing 50% of the business to all of the ewes that he is serving, he's half the flock essentially. So you need to make sure that you get a very high quality ram. You're looking for the growth rate, you're looking for conformation, killing out percentage, leanness, all of those things that we mentioned with the Suffolk and the Texels. So the fast growth, the lean meat, the carcass quality, good conformation, all of those things. And as we mentioned earlier, you have a ready-made assessment of those in your Eurostar rating. So if you get a 5-star ram, you are likely to get good results from him. So that's your ram who brings the quality to your breeding program. And then the ewe for quantity. So the main things you're looking for in your ewe are prolificacy. So you want her to have multiple lambs. It's bad news for farmer if the ewe gets pregnant with only one lamb. You're always looking to have twins to increase your reproductive efficiency on your farm and therefore your profit. And good mothering qualities are really important as well. You don't want to see her rejecting her lamb. And we mentioned already that those tend to come from the mountain breeds. Then other things you can do to actually increase that would be flushing the ewe. So if you flush the ewe, what we mean by that is you put the ewes together with a high stocking rate on fairly good pasture for a while before you bring them into the mating season, and then just before the mating season you lower your stock density so that they're getting much better nutrition. And it's not particularly scientifically proven, but a lot of farmers think that going from that lower plane of nutrition onto the higher plane of nutrition kind of tricks the ewe's body into thinking, oh, I'm ready now for carrying twins. So it will increase the reproductive efficiency. And we already mentioned the Belclare Improver as a good ewe for bringing all of these qualities. Now, how would you know if your ewe needed to be replaced? Well, if she's gotten old, if she's not prolific anymore, if she's had a couple of singles in a row, certainly if she's having udder troubles, if she's having repeated mastitis, it's time for her to go. If she's got faulty teeth, if she's kind of undersized after a while, if she's having lambing difficulties repeatedly, you don't want to have to be interfering the whole time with lambing. If she has a low milk yield, certainly if she's barren, if you can't get her pregnant, then she's not much good to you. Or if she has bad feet, basically if she requires any minding at all, it's time to replace her. And that is the end of that presentation. The next thing we're going to look at is actually producing your lamb. So we'll be looking at gestation and serving, etc. Sin óireann.